Denver Nuggets team. And it's one of those situations where, I wasn't sure how long Joker was going to be out because he's been an Iron Man for this team. And we came to find out that he's been pretty significantly injured. And I think at the end of the day, though, you want him as healthy as possible. Not just him. We'll talk Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, who's been up and down with the injuries this season. I mean, we have not seen a lot of this starting five together for majority of the year here so far. But again, it's interesting because Denver's offense, with or without Nikola Jokic, is going to figure out a way to put the ball in the hole. I mean, their offensive rating is fantastic, but you just see the overall continuity and the flow and the ease at which the game comes with them just taken up a notch when the Joker's out there.
Yeah, and Michael Malone talked last night after the game about having that starting five back together.
Yeah.
When we are healthy, that lineup has won a lot of big games. They know what it takes on both ends of the floor. They know each other. They have, just great chemistry and confidence in one another. So that's what I like about that group with 8 games to go, is that they've been through a lot of battles and they've won a lot of battles.
Yeah, and I agree with Michael Malone that group, which minus the fifth guy, which is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Christian Brown, they did play a lot together the last couple of years, and they have won a lot of big games, including this season. But this season, they've only played together 21 times, and they're 12-9 with that starting five this season. The starting five we all thought going into the year was going to be so good. And it's not for Christian Brown struggling. He's been really good for the Nuggets. His three-point shooting percentage, I think, is better than the wildest dream anyone could have. His transition scoring and finishing has been a big boon. His defense has maybe taken a little bit of a step back, but overall, the player that Christian Brown's become has been good. So why have the Nuggets struggled to a 12-9 record when this great starting five is together?
And that's the million-dollar question, because I don't know if I could give you a firm answer, because everything tells us they should not be. And you and I were texted about it after we departed Ball Arena near the midnight last night about, I think it was 7 losses at home in the championship season, 8 losses, I believe, the year prior, but already 12 for them at Ball Arena this year. So obviously there's something going on. And I go back to the Jokic quote, I believe it was after the Washington game, one of the more recent games before he got injured, talking about how he doesn't believe that you can flip this switch. He kind of believes that you are what your record says you are. And at the end of the day, I know, that's the optimism of Nuggets Nation out there, as they believe, this team's going to be better come playoff time. Jamal Murray's playing well. Michael Porter Jr., look what he did before the All-Star break, right? But I also tend to subscribe to what Jokic is selling, in the sense of, I've been impressed in spurts, right? I think back to that Oklahoma City win a couple of weeks ago, but I remember the Knicks games. I remember the loss to Oklahoma City the game prior.
They had quite literally the 2 worst home losses in the history of the Denver Nuggets, minus the Paul Westhead era this year. And the Paul Westhead era was very bad, Aneillo.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I think back to Cleveland as well. I mean, there have been some uncharacteristic losses for the Denver Nuggets in this recent Nikola Jokic era. I mean, the last 2 years, obviously things fell apart for them in the playoffs against Minnesota, but you felt confident going into the playoffs. Not that I don't necessarily this year, but I can tell you this, not nearly as confident as I did the previous 2 seasons.
So if I were to ask you today, are the Nuggets this 46-28 team, a team that's likely going to be the second or top seed in the West for the 3rd straight year, a contender, maybe the 4th best team in the NBA now, but one of the best teams over the last couple of years? Are they that team, or are they the team that struggles to beat the Milwaukee Bucks without Giannis Antetokounmpo, the team that drops a Game 7 by blowing a 20-point lead on their home floor, a team that drops that Game 6 with the worst playoff loss in the history of the Denver Nuggets? What team is this team? Because that's the confounding question that I keep coming back to with these guys, and I don't think it's for necessarily, hey, they haven't had their group healthy all year. When it's been healthy, it hasn't been great. When it hasn't been healthy, we've seen the holes, but the holes translate no matter what it is. And I'll give you the statistics, Aneillo. This year, 21 games, they've been the starting five, right? Last year, if you have KCP instead of Christian Brown, the starting five we all got accustomed to, they played 48 games together. They won 37. The year before, they played 41 games together, a new starting five. They won 27. So more in line winning percentage wise this year with that season. And honestly, there are a lot of statistics that point to this season being very similar to that first KCP season, the championship season, whether it's net ratings or defensive ratings, stuff like they step it up in the 4th quarter in crunch time. But there's something off with this team compared to that team. And maybe it's just the fact that there's clearly a better team in the West than the Thunder, where there was not that season.
And the one thing that I'll say on the optimistic point of view is, yes, the Thunder are a better team X's and O's wise, but they haven't proven it. I think that's the one thing you can rest your head on at night if you are a Denver Nugget fan is, to your point, these guys have been there and done that. Christian Brown playing key minutes in that championship run, but Malone talked about it. He can only say so much. Jamal Murray came out after a recent game as well and talked about how it's on us to execute what coach is telling us to do. I tend to think that this team is just not even, I don't want to say not even close, but I think they're on the downward trajectory compared to what they've been the last 2 years. Because to your point, the message seems stale, and I'm a Malone guy. I think it's up to the players to go ahead and execute this. But at the end of the day, Jokic is playing 35-plus minutes a night. Jamal, 38 minutes a night. Michael Porter Jr., is he in, is he not? Like, in regards to the shot making, right? And so I just think you also don't have the leeway and the veteran experience with a guy like Jeff Green, who's going to get up there after a game in the finals or in the playoffs in which you lost and said, that's a disgrace. We got to be better, right? You don't have Bruce Brown providing you that same spark off of the bench with Christian Brown playing complimentary basketball. You're throwing out a aging DeAndre Jordan 2 games in a row, who's been fine in that respect. But at the end of the day, their margin for error is so slim that that's what gets me concerned about this team long term.
And you can't increase the starter minutes, as you've alluded to. They've already been
they're
playing
maxed out.
playoff minutes. So, a couple of years ago, the last couple of years, you've been saying, okay, well, Jokic is going to play more minutes in the playoffs. Well, Jokic is already playing those minutes. So, with the Nuggets, you need all of these things to happen, which is you need the starters to play even better than the level that they're playing at. You need the starters to be better defensively, particularly. You need Russell Westbrook playing well for 25 minutes a game. You need Peyton Watson playing well for 15 to 20 minutes a game. You need Westbrook and Watson playing well together, which has not happened at all this season. And you need at least one of Jalen Pickett, Zeke Naji, Vlatko Čančar, or Julian Strawther playing better than they ever have. And that's not likely to happen. So you probably need all 6 of these factors to come true for the Nuggets to make a deep playoff run. And at the same time, I keep looking at the West and I go, if they simply don't run into Oklahoma City or Minnesota, they're getting through.
And that's what's interesting, because if they do draw the Clippers or the Rockets or insert team here to your point, not Oklahoma City, the Lakers do scare me a little bit. I say that holding my breath. I just think Luka, LeBron's all fired up now. Is this Stephen A. Smith stuff going to, get him into king mode, whatever it might be? But again, to go back to your point, how much Jokic can't be any better, can he? I mean, the guy waltzes in after a week and a half off last night, walking triple-double, 39, 10, and 10. What more could you expect from the guy? Jamal Murray, arguably playing the best basketball of his career right now in the regular season. Playoff Murray's, a different beast. So it's going to come down to Michael Porter Jr., which makes me scared. I think Peyton Watson has all of the intangibles, but he's a guy this is his first real crack at playing real legitimate minutes on a game in and game out basis. There's just so much that needs to go right for the Denver Nuggets. But to your point, you got to play who's on your schedule. And if they draw the right way in the playoffs, there's a chance.
Do you think Nikola Jokic looked better physically last night than he did 2 weeks ago when we saw him in that back-to-back against LA and Washington?
And isn't it crazy to think he played in the back-to-back, and then misses a week and a half? It's hard for me to say. I think he looked better, but it's also like he's Jokic. Like he's not going to rely on burst, right? He's not going to jump. He did dunk the ball last night a few times. Nice to see that. So that's probably an indicator of how he's feeling. But at the end of the day, Joker wants to be out there. And as long as Joker's out there, you got to believe that even if he's not 100%, right? Because you and I know, talking to people, all that good stuff, he's been banged up throughout the course of the season, as have other players. But he figures out a way to impact the game in a very positive way regardless. But to answer your question, yes, I do think he looked solid last night.
Malone thought he benefited from that rest.
He was banged up. Those games that he missed were not rest games. Those games were missed because his inability to go out there and play at the level he's capable of playing. But I did see a guy that looked rested, looked explosive, and looked as efficient and dominating as ever.
As dominating as ever, which is something you have to say when a guy gets his 30th triple-double of the season, joining just Oscar, Wilt, and Russ.
Ridiculous.
To do that. Absurd. We don't talk about Jokic enough, and
no, we don't.
How awesome he is, and just because it gets boring, but it's not, because I was there last night, and it was just a masterclass. And again, I could not be higher on Brook Lopez and how good of a player he is. There were multiple.
I can't believe he's still in the league, by the way.
Oh my God,
New Jersey Nets legend.
His brother's
Brook
out of the
Lopez.
league. Yeah, Brook Lopez is the leading scorer in Nets history.
Wow, really?
Because
he was there. Yeah. J. Kidd wasn't there long enough. Vince wasn't there long enough.
Dr. J wasn't there long enough.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good little nugget.
That's
there.
a great trivia
intended.
question. Yeah, and Brook Lopez didn't shoot a 3 with the Brooklyn Nets, basically. He didn't shoot a 3 until he, joined Milwaukee. And his brother is out of the league, his twin brothers. I still remember CU playing the Lopez twins up in Boulder when they were at Stanford. But yeah, I look at what Jokic did last night against Lopez, and basically Milwaukee at one point in the fourth quarter just gave up. Their bench was dejected.
Not till late, though.
Yeah, not till late. But Brook Lopez at one point got beat on a spin move and then just didn't even chase back to contest on Jokic because that's how devastatingly amazing he looked. And, I kind of had the thought go through my head, Aneillo, that, Mr. Positivity over here, maybe Jokic taking that week off was a blessing in disguise for the Nuggets in the rest of the season.
I think it could also be, I agree. I think it's also a little bit of strategy, right? Because to your point, everything you just said, did Jokic look better, this and that? Can they beat these teams? Can they shoot the ball well from three? Can they clamp down on defense? The common denominator in any level of success, real success, championship success for this Denver Nuggets team starts and ends with Nikola Jokic. He's the best player in the world. It's not close. Should probably be the MVP. We don't have to talk about that right now. But you need him as close to 100% as possible. And I know there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there, and people love to chirp about LeBron because the last 3 or 4 years he's taken a stretch off of time right around this time of the season as well. Look, I don't think Jokic is looking to take time off, nor is Mike Malone looking to, have him out for a week and a half, whatever it might be. But to your point, if Sac and let's see if they learn their lesson. Because what happened last year? What was part of the reason why Minnesota was able to bounce them? Not just because the matchup was tough, because Denver ran themselves into the ground. They were exhausted.
Well, the one guy who didn't was Jokic.
You kind of come to expect that, right? But I mean, it's interesting.
He was the guy who played the most minutes, and then he's the only guy who's able to score in the second half of that game. I will say he did look a little fatigued. It didn't look like the Jokic we're used to seeing, but you look at what Jokic has played in terms of games over the course of his career per season. You go back to 18-19, 80, 73, 72, 74, 69 the year they won the title, 79 last year, 63 this year. There's 8 games left. If Jokic plays in all of them, that's 71. If he skips 1 or 2, that's 69 or 70. So the Nuggets clearly are going back to the formula of, hey, let's not use Jokic as much. Let's take some rest down the stretch. And if you look at any stretch of basketball that the Nuggets could have chosen to rest their guys on the calendar late in the season, it would have been the one they just chose because they only have 2 games left against non-West playoff teams. And we can get into that in a second. But my point to you, Aneillo, is I think they picked their spot, and it's the thing we all wanted Michael Malone to do last year that he refused to do as he chased seeding. Rest your players. It proved to work en route to a title. And this year, they're kind of resting their players a little bit. I thought they were going to rest Michael Porter Jr. last night.
Well, and he kind of talked about it as well, that he's been banged up with a hamstring injury but wants to be out there because of his teammates. Here's what he had to say.
I don't know. I feel like it's affecting my overall power input a little bit on my shot, not getting as much lift. But yeah, I'm just trying to work through it and have it be 100% by the time playoffs comes around. I think this 3-day break will be great for it. Kind of healed slower than I thought it would, but I think it'll start coming around.
Well, and we're going to talk about the importance of Michael Porter Jr., but it was nice to see him out there last night, getting back to Michael Porter Jr. form. 6 of 8 from deep. You needed that. I mean, he's been an absolute glass cleaner this season as well. 10 boards for him last night. Finishes with 23 points, adds in 4 assists and 3 steals. That is the type of game you need from Michael Porter Jr. if you want to contend come playoff time. But frankly, I think it's also the game he needs for himself to build that confidence back up.
He has had the best playmaking season of his career. It's gone completely unnoticed. He's shot 30% from 3 since the All-Star break and has struggled because of this hamstring issue or maybe a back issue.
Air quotes.
We're not really sure.
Everybody's also hurt at this point in the season.
Correct.
Everyone's got something.
And the rebounding goes completely overlooked because everyone just assumes they've got this guy who gets 15 rebounds a night. He's the biggest load in the league, Nikola Jokic. They're a good rebounding team. The Nuggets are not a good rebounding team, particularly on the defensive glass. And Michael Porter Jr. collecting 7, defensive rebounds a game, getting regularly 10 rebound nights is so important for this Nuggets team, especially this season when they have not had Aaron Gordon. So we know the shooting issues have been a struggle for a while. I liked that Chicago game where he just kept shooting no matter what. And he comes out in this game against the Milwaukee Bucks and just starts shooting and shooting.
Hunting
and he goes
for his shot.
6 for 6 to start the game, Aneillo. And I turn to the guy next to me and I go, I bet you he doesn't even get a shot in the second half. He takes 2 shots in the second half, and then a third one as the game's closing. It ends up being the dagger. But it just goes for me, like, why is MPJ not more involved? It's been one of my biggest frustrations with the Nuggets over the course of this entire run. And I talked about it today on the Mile High Hoops podcast. Michael Porter Jr. is both the most reliant player on Nikola Jokic and the least reliant player on Nikola Jokic. He's the most reliant because Michael Porter Jr. doesn't create his own shots. He doesn't do anything particularly stand out well on defense. But he's great at hitting open shots and finishing defensive possessions by grabbing rebounds. But he's also the least reliant on Jokic because if he was on any other team, guys can generate open shots for Porter. So in a way, Porter has the most trade value if the Nuggets were to trade him. And the statistics show, like the net rating, some of the advanced statistics show that Porter's actually the Nugget that does the best when Jokic isn't on the floor. So I love what Porter brings to the Nuggets. I've been in his camp. His struggles have been notable over the last couple games, but I think he's finally broken his slump.
I don't know. I feel like I shoot the same way every time. Sometimes it just doesn't go in. I don't know really why. I feel like I've been putting in the work off the court. I've been trying to take care of my body. I genuinely think it was just a balance issue, a compensation issue from my body not feeling perfect side to side. I felt like I was leaning a little bit and compensating on one side, and I was throwing the ball off a little bit.
He says, I don't know why. That's the Curious Mike voice right there. It's such a class. But here's what I say. I agree with you. I love Michael Porter Jr. I think, obviously, you don't win the championship without Michael Porter Jr. The issue is the consistency. And you got to try to be in the middle when you're not on fire. The problem is it's either hot or cold, and it's not just hot or cold, it's scorching or freezing with Michael Porter Jr. And I love the rebounds. To your point, you discussed Denver's inability or struggles to get the rebounds on the defensive end of the glass. But the thing is, Michael Porter Jr. is on this team to knock down open shots. And when he goes 2-9 from three, whatever it might be, you mentioned it, 30% from three post All-Star break, it's just unacceptable because here's the reality of the situation. And I know he's up for a new contract here sooner rather than later. They've got 3 quote-unquote max contract players and only 1 All-Star who's the best player in the world. Jamal has figured it out. I was critical of Jamal early in the season, but he's playing excellent right now. Excellent basketball from Jamal. Where is the consistency from Michael Porter Jr.? And going back to your point about Minnesota, that's a team that chews him up and spits him out.
Is that the biggest game left on the Nuggets schedule?
Has to be. I mean, I was on with Cease in Dover yesterday, and Cecil sitting in the chair that I'm sitting in right now looks at me in the eye saying, are you afraid of Minnesota? I said, are you kidding me? How could you not be afraid of Minnesota?
So it's not just the chair that does that to people over there.
No,
right?
it's not
it's just a Cecil thing.
It might be.
Okay.
And I like Cecil. He's a good guy, good host. But I was like, in what world are you not afraid of Minnesota? And again, what is it, 5-6 in a row that they've beat them? I mean, I think a win next Tuesday, even a competitive loss, but you want the win, you've got to get over the hump. Because I don't know what the percentage is after last night's game, but odds are if things shake out the way that they will, Denver might end up drawing the Minnesota Timberwolves in round 1, which is a nightmare matchup. And to your point, if they get the right break come seeding-wise, you might see them in the Western Conference Finals against Oklahoma City. But if they draw the worst way, which is Minnesota, it might be Wolves in 5.
Yeah, right now, the Nuggets are actually more likely ever so slightly to end up with the 2 seed, and the Wolves ever so slightly to get the 3 seed. To draw the 3 seed by way of having the 6th in the standings, so 3-6, 2-7. I think for me, the biggest game left on the schedule is not Minnesota, but it's that Houston game in Houston. You look at the standings, and that's literally going to decide who gets the 2 seed, who gets the 3 seed, most likely. The Nuggets and the Rockets are neck and neck in the standings. That's a tiebreaker game as well. And it will tell us a lot about this team, Aneillo, because they can decide if, let's say, Minnesota has already locked in the 7
Good
seed.
point.
They can go ahead and throw away that game and end up with the 3 and play the 6, which is probably going to be the Warriors. So I think we're going to learn the most about this team on April 13th and the decisions they make that night and how they play that game, because it'll tell us a lot about who they believe they are as a basketball team.
Well, and Joker talked about it last night about how would he kind of gauge the fellas' performance without him in there, and he mentioned the Houston game as the one that he felt like they were playing their best.
They played awesome.
Yeah, and I know the final score was 116-111, so maybe if you're just looking at box score and the overall end game there, you're thinking, okay, they had to fight for the win, but to your point, they did play a solid game.
If you watch that game, you would come away thinking at the Houston Rockets don't have a way to score in crunch time. You want them in the playoffs because they don't have an identity. And the Nuggets found a way to swallow Alpi Sengun without Jokic even on the floor. So I really like the Nuggets versus the Rockets in the playoffs. In fact, if you're a Nuggets fan, I think I'd be rooting for the Rockets to win in the first round because most likely the Rockets and Nuggets then would play in the second round. What else are you looking for the Nuggets to maybe learn, or you learn about the Nuggets in the final 8 games? They talked about this a little bit last night. They kind of just said they need to be a little bit more consistent. I don't really know what that means because this team has just shown one thing this year about consistency. They're inconsistent.
Exactly.
So I don't really know that I'm going to trust their consistency if they're consistent for the final 8 games of the year.
The thing with that is, like, it's defense, obviously, in particular early in the game. I mean, they have been atrocious, is not even a strong enough adjective to describe how bad Denver's been defensively early in these matchups. But I also don't really expect Denver to flip that switch until they get to the playoffs. Like, I do expect a much more focused approach out of the gate, not just trying to outshoot the opponent and run up the score that way and try to, do it like that. But at the end of the day, I think it's really just, I don't know if there's anything that they can do on the court. I just want to see them healthy. And you and I disagree a little bit. I think that Minnesota game is so key to get that swag back of, you know what? Don't matter who we play. We can go out there. We can win any series. I think that is imperative because they beat Oklahoma City this year, right? Some up and down games against the Lakers. Minnesota is the one team